George Esquivel makes shoes the way people wish most everything was still made, by hand, with honesty defining every deliberation. A client list that includes people whose names you already know. The resume, you'll know quickly. CFDA, Vogue Fashion Fund finalists, Barney's, Bergdorf Goodman, Browns, London, Colette Paris, among others. But what stays with me is his father, and in George's own words, a career criminal and a poor excuse for a father. Honesty that is brutal and beautifully defining. Tonight isn't about luxury and not about shoes. It's about what you build, and the thing that taught you your hustle and the thing that broke your trust turned out to be the same. George, it's good to have you. Let's go.
Good to see you, Miles. It's been a minute.
Been too long. Listen, time is valuable. Thank you for spending yours with us today. And
my pleasure.
It's great to bring you here. George, signature 3-part open. Going to hit you with 3 questions. Take them any way you want. It's the best way to get our audience familiar with you. George Esquivel, who are you? Who have you been? And most importantly, who are you becoming?
Who am I? Well, is that business or personal?
Take it any way you want, brother.
I think, George, who am I? I think it's father, husband, friend. To me, that would be the best thing. And in terms of business, George Esquivel, we own a footwear and accessories brand. Most of our products are handmade here in Southern California. And what was the other part? Where have I been?
No, who are you becoming?
Who am I becoming? I hopefully a better person and more loving, more kind. That to me is, I think this should be the goal for everybody, right? Appreciate life a little bit more. I know a lot of it is business, but for me, I'm kind of getting to the age where it's more about life than business. When 30s, 40s, you're grinding. And I think once you hit your 50s, you're like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have grinded so hard.
I can relate. That's the truth.
Yeah. And
George, you left a few things out. You're a CFDA Vogue Fashion Award finalist 2009. You've been a CFDA member since 2010. You've created, in my opinion, some of the most iconic footwear and leather accessory designs that have stood not only the test of time, but have graced some of the most amazing musicians, artists, politicians, and athletes. I think that's a testament to who and what you do.
Man. Thank you. I guess that's what I do, not who I am, right?
Yes.
I'm blessed. I have an amazing job, and it's been a wild, crazy ride, man. It's the craziest ride, from how I grew up to how I got into this business to how it just took off. It's been a lot of fun. And I've been blessed. I've been blessed meeting people like you and we have mutual friends. It's just been a really cool adventure. And, someone asked me the other day, who's my favorite person that I've made shoes for? And, everybody always wants to know a celebrity, but I'll tell you who my favorite person is. It's the gentleman or the woman who saves up their money and they come and see me like once every 12 to 18 months to get a pair of shoes or a bag. That to me is the favorite people because they appreciate what we do. And, they're, and not to say that the celebrities and some of our other clients don't appreciate it, but they have access to so much more because of who they are and what they do. The hardworking mom and dad, family man, mom, dad, those people I really appreciate when they come to us and they say, hey, this is my first pair and I'm getting it for my 50th. I had a gentleman come in a couple weeks ago to pick up his pair of shoes because his daughter's getting married. It was the coolest thing. He says, George, I've never spent over $150, $200 in a pair of shoes because, putting his kids through college and just everything, all his sacrifices. He's like, this is my first big splurge. I saw him and he says, George, I felt like $1 million. Thank you. So that's super cool. I don't want to leave that out in the story. The people that I really appreciate that support us.
George, you've been consistently that way. And I'm sure there have been some great highs and some modest in-betweens. And I appreciate the consistency, as I mentioned, in your approach. You've always appreciated everyone, and you've always met your audience right where they are. Your head didn't get bloated when things were shining bright, or the belt got tight. You didn't get crotchety and upset. So I appreciate that.
I
Once
didn't
you share
show it.
that.
I didn't show it at least. Well, I'll tell you how. I'll give you a funny story of who brought me down to earth one time. So it was actually my wife. So I'm I get a I was working with Stanley Silver at Fred Siegel Feet, a legendary retail merchant. Uh Actually was he's the one who introduced me to luxury footwear, showed me about collections. I mean, this man was amazing, took me under his wings and really mentored me for several years while I worked with him. So I get an email or a call, I don't remember, that Nicolas Cage wanted some shoes. So here I go to Nicolas Cage's house. This is like the first major celebrity of that level. I'd been doing other celebrities and other musicians, but this was huge. I drive to his house in Bel Air. You know, he's got the British butler and the three-piece suit, just the whole thing.
Right.
So I'm on cloud nine. He bought so many shoes, it was crazy. And I remember getting home and I'm super pumped. And I walk in and I tell my wife what's going on. And she's like, yeah, okay, that's great. But Savannah's in the bath. Benny needs to be fed. You got to take the trash out. Diaper needs changed, like all of that. And it just brought me back down to earth. Like that is, so having that life of being a parent and a husband really kind of always leveled me off, right? And that's when I realized my wife's so awesome. She's not affected by this. And I could have been affected, and I was affected by it in the beginning. I started this because I thought it was super cool making shoes for musicians and standing on stage off to the side while they're performing, where my wife's like, I just want to be a mom and have kids. And, so that's I definitely could have gone that route.
Oh,
My wife kept me straight, man. Yeah.
Well, let's dig into that.
Yeah.
As I remember you sharing your story about your upbringing, and that your father taught you everything you know about style, but your father had a quite unique background, as did your family life. Can you speak to that and how that has affected you?
With super crazy upbringing. So I grew up between LA and Orange County. My father was a career criminal. I'll give you a couple examples of who my father was. At the age of 7, when I was 7, my father came home shot and he wanted my mom to patch him up. Like literally didn't want to go to the hospital, just got shot in the arm. And that was just blood everywhere, screaming, yelling. And that was kind of our life all the time. At the age of 9, my dad takes me to steal my first bike.
Oh, my
And
God.
here in Southern California, Pep Boys used to sell bikes. And he asked me one day, he's like, hey, let's get you a bike. And I'm thinking, amazing. And I'm thinking we're going to go to Pep Boys and he's going to buy a bike, right? So, and I can't even make this stuff up, Miles. My dad was George. There was another George in the front seat, his friend that he's getting high with. And I'm the third George in the back seat. And I'm 9 years old, right around there. And we're driving around and we passed Pep Boys. And it just dawned on me, we're not going to Pep Boys. And they're talking about, where are we going to go get this bike? And just having been around that my entire life, of the criminality, the craziness of, I just knew something good was not going to happen, right? So we drive around LA, and I would imagine probably somewhere we ended up in Hancock Park, some beautiful home, big yard, and they pull around the corner, and my dad tells the guy, okay, go get that one. And it was the coolest bike in the world at the time, which was an Evil Knievel. He stole me, not a bike. He stole me the coolest bike in the world. But it was one of those things, Miles, where the other George, we meet him around the corner. My dad pops the trunk of the car. They throw it in the trunk. My dad looks back at me, says, don't tell your mom where you got it. Being a little boy, I'm thinking the cops are looking for this bike, right? And not knowing it's a stolen bike. The cops are going to roll in, they're going to arrest me. And I was scared to ride it. Yeah. And I was embarrassed to ride it. My cousins, I had a cooler bike than my cousins, and they all had nice homes and they lived in nice homes. We were always moving, and they were making fun of me, probably because my dad bragged about how he got the bike when I wasn't around. And, they make fun of me. So I couldn't even enjoy the bike. So it wasn't fun that having this crazy guy as your father. Um, when I was 14, he wanted to bring me into the family business, and I started collecting the money for the drugs at 14.
Wow.
I knew where all the guns were at in the house. Like, hey, here's this if something happens, and when you're a kid, you're like, this is kind of cool, but it's not, right? Thank goodness my mom and him just she fought for us. We tried leaving him a couple times, and I remember after he was gone and wasn't living with us anymore, I asked my mom, I said, hey, that one time when we left, what happened? Why couldn't we stay away? And it turns out he told her, he goes, if you ever leave me again, I am going to kill you, kill the kids, and shoot it out with the cops. So we were stuck there, right? Until I was about 19. I was 19 when I kicked him out. We got in a fist fight, and I think it was his time to go. He knew it was his time to go, because I would think, I was just so miserable. He went to jail. He was locked up from my freshman year of high school, I think, to almost my senior year of high school. He was with someone and they killed somebody, like a rival drug dealer or something. So we didn't have him for 3 years, and it was amazing. Our life was good. Everything was fine. And then he comes back out right before my senior year of high school. Comes back, and I'm not a little kid anymore. Now, after what I've seen, I'm not a grown man, but I'm also not a kid, right? And I've realized how crappy our life was with him all the time and how good it was without him. So all of us resented him. For some reason, my mom took him back, and him and I are fighting for the next couple years. And then I was going to move in with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Shelly, and he found out. My mom ratted me out.
Oh,
So I'm the only one working in the house. I'm 19. I'm literally the only one working in the house. He doesn't work all day, just doing drugs. And I was thinking to myself, I'm going to wait for him to go to sleep. And based on how he brought me up is just take care of your shit, right? I was going to wait for him to go to sleep, hit him in the ribs a couple times with a baseball bat, and kick him out. Thank goodness I didn't go that route, Miles. I would have ended up in jail, right?
oh.
I would have ended up in jail. So I come home from my girlfriend's house one night, and we lived in a shack. This place just sucked. And you're abandoning the family, you're worthless, and we get in a fist fight. And I think he realized, like, it's his time to leave. So I basically said to my mom, like, look, I'll stick around, but he can't be here anymore. And I was the eldest of 5. So I had 2 siblings in high school, one in 6th grade and one in kindergarten. And from 19 until, I would say, 24, I just kind of helped my mom and became the head of the household, and kind of just went in that direction. And it was crazy. He threatened to kill my mom. We had restraining orders against him. He hired some gang members to come and beat me up. And I remember, because I knew him based on where we lived. I've always had friends that, a lot of people may not want around, but they're just people. And to me, it's never bothered me being around those type of people, criminals. I have cousins that serving life sentences in prison. So it's never anything that has um, scared me, right? Because growing up around it, just the guns, the drugs, all that craziness. So this guy comes up to me one day. He's all, hey, I don't think I ran into him in the store. He goes, hey, your dad wants us to take care of you. He wants us to tune you up. I'm like, really? My dad? I'm like, what's he going to pay you guys? He's going to give us a couple $100. I'm like, come on, man. Like, seriously? He goes, just buy us a case of beer. We're cool. I'm like, all right, let's go get you a case of beer.
Oh my God.
So my dad wanted these guys to beat me up, but they were my friends, right? So it's just crazy. Like, literally,
Yeah.
that was my dad. He, I would see him after I kicked him out on the street. He was a veteran. So, and he was in a bad drug deal with a steel plate in his head. So he was on disability, and we just never really got along anymore. And he tried to come around, but we didn't want him around. None of us wanted him around. And he would always just cause trouble. So he passed 12 years ago by himself in a motel room. Yeah. His body just gave out. Let's see, 12 years, he would have been 67, probably looked like he was 85, 90, just from all the years of drugs and drinking, and just, he didn't look like homeless dirty, but he just looked like he had some serious miles. Yeah. That was my dad, and that was a family, man. It was crazy. But I'll tell you the crazy, I learned what not to be from him.
Yes.
Everybody can learn, I think, from the positive and the negative. I really learned what not to be, and I fought it for a long time. I used to think, when I was 21, just knowing the people that I knew and the people that my dad ran around with, I used to think, well, I'd be a really good drug dealer. I don't like drugs. I don't do drugs. I can make some money and just get out. That's the stupidity of what I was thinking, right? And it's because of the influence that I had. And because I didn't know, like, I tried school a couple times, but because of how difficult it was at home, trying to help my mom with my younger siblings and paying rent. I got a girlfriend that wants me to move out. The whole, just all life. It's like, man, I could just steal drugs for a couple of years, make a bunch of money, and go figure something else out. Thank goodness I didn't do that either. So early years, I was always struggling, as they say, with the devil and the angel, on one shoulder and the other on the other shoulder. And my mom would always she'd have some crazy sayings that really made sense later in life. Like, she'd say, if it ain't yours, don't touch it. If it's not meant for you, don't touch it. And then she'd always say, have faith in God and work hard, and everything's going to work out all right. And it has. That's kind of how I live my life.
So mom was a woman of faith?
Definitely a woman of faith. And I'm still, I go to church. I love God. I mean, he's the one who saved me. I know for a fact, just talking to God, I talk to God a lot. And I used to ask God questions, and I'd get answers. I literally, when we were living in the motels, so I went to 12 different schools, and up until I was in high school, we mostly lived in motels, like a one-room motel, 7 of us in there. And my father loved living in these places because he was actually a very intelligent man. He, during the Vietnam War, he was stationed in Germany, so he grew up speaking Spanish and English. He's from here, from Orange County, born and raised here. And then in Germany, he learned German. And here's the crazy thing, Miles. I was in French class in junior high. He used to help me with my French class, with my French homework. So this guy was like one of those guys that could do anything. But he loved being around in those motels because everybody's got drugs, and he was just crazy that way. My sister coined a very funny phrase. She used to call him the king of the dipshits. So Miles he's just one of those guys, very charismatic. People love being around him, and come and hang out, and he'd like talk and, hey, let's get high together just for some advice. That's why he loved living in those places. He would just get high for free. So
Wow.
it was a wild time. So that was up until I was 14, living in motels. Those were some horrible times. And I remember living in those motels and just the things that we saw. And I would literally say, God, all I want is a cool job and just a pretty girl that I can be with. And I ended up with that times a million, man. Beautiful wife, an amazing job. I've traveled the world. It's how can I not believe in God? I mean, literally, just the little things that I wanted, God's given me so much more.
Good on you. George, how do you go from that background and those experiences to high-end luxury shoe manufacturing? What influenced you to get into the craft? Who mentored you? I've heard some stories. We've talked about it, but it's a journey.
So while I'm being head of the household, my escape with my girlfriend was going to these punk and rock concerts. I had a lot of aggression, just kind of aggressive music. Late in the late 90s, there was this whole movement of like the resurgence of punk, like Social Distortion and, all these bands in Orange County and LA. And that back then it was more like, it was very much a tribe, right? The music you listened to is how you dressed. And the punk rockabilly scene was very punk and vintage clothes. And it suited me fine because I couldn't afford anything because I'm helping my mom. And so the vintage clothes, and then so at first I was buying the UPS driver shirts and reworking them. And I started with clothing first. So I'm making shirts for all these musicians and they're all wearing them. And it was basically the UPS driver shirts. We'd make them look a little bit, remember like the Kramer shirts, the shirts he was wearing? It was
Sure.
something like that. So I just did my version and it was doing really well. I had no idea what I was doing with business, Miles. I literally kept track of everything in the composition notepads. Name, what they bought, the deposit, like I had no idea of how to run a business. What I did learn, it was kind of the hustle from my dad, I guess. He was either selling drugs or jewelry or something. And I was always with him. So I guess I picked up the hustle. And going to all those schools, I always had to make new friends and learning to talk to people and not being afraid. Just got to put it out there. So I start with the driver shirts and now I'm buying vintage shoes, going to concerts, but nothing quite fit. I'm a size 10, 10 to 11 are probably the first sizes to go in vintage shoes. That's kind of standard. So they would either fit too small, too big. So my girlfriend and I would go to Baja, Ensenada, Rosarito, and kind of play adults for the day, right? $10, you get some beers, some tacos, hang out. And it was fun back then before it got too crazy down there. On one of those trips, I saw a sign that said bootmaker. And I said, hey, if I give you guys a quick sketch, can you guys make it for me? They said, sure. And months go by. It was kind of a pain in the ass, actually, because I would drive down. They would tell me, I would call them, hey, are my shoes ready? Yeah, come on down. Literally drive down for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Oh, they're not ready yet. You're like, what are you talking about? So it was crazy. I finally get them, Miles. And here's the irony. They still didn't fit right. They were still too small. All I wanted was a pair of shoes that fit me, but I would wear them and people would ask me like, what the heck are those things? Because at the time it was Creepers and Doc Martens. And Doc Martens I had, Creepers were a little too much. It was a little too superhero for me, right? The 5-inch platform. I wanted to stand out, but not in that way. I
Right.
wanted kind of like a subtle standout, right? So I'm wearing these shoes and everybody's saying, oh my gosh, can I get a pair? And I'm still selling the shirts, but I'm not doing the shoes. So I'm thinking, how do I do this? Like, I want more shoes for me more than anything, Miles, because I'm getting all this positive affirmation. People are literally coming up to me. Your shoes are so cool at the concerts. Like, what are those? Like, where did you get them? Where did you find them? That's what everybody used to ask. This was before the internet, right? Ask, hey, where'd you get them? So I used to drive a truck for a chain of linen stores from San Diego to Bakersfield. And I started noticing all of these shoe repair shops on my route. And I said to myself, man, they must know somebody who can make me a pair of shoes. This is pre-internet. So pre-internet, now I'm living with Shelly and I don't think I've moved. No, we haven't moved in yet. Maybe we had. And I'm driving, and this was about a year's worth of searching. And I would stop at every shoe repair, ask them, I'd give them a deposit. And then it turns out they made me a piece of, you know, I didn't know anything about shoe design and they were still bad. So
Yep.
they must have been bad. So
Yep.
I'd get in an argument, get my money back. Finally, I met this gentleman at a shoe repair and he would happen to be there using their machines. And I got an argument, giving my money back. This isn't what I asked for because I was very specific. This is what I'm looking for. I would give him a picture, a quick little sketch or something. And so he follows me out and he says, hey, I don't work here and I didn't make your shoes, but I'm a retired shoemaker. I pay them to let me use their machines. I make shoes for my friends and my family. I think I'd like you to come over to my house. And I said, aren't you part of that group of clowns in there? Just kind of being rude. And back then, Miles, I was also very aggressive and still angry. Like, life's not treating me fair. How come I'm still dealing with all of this stuff of my father and the unfairness. I got my friends went off to play college football and I didn't even get to go to college, just all of this
Sure.
stuff. Right. And then my girlfriend gets pregnant and obviously it takes two, but I'm still like, doggone it. This isn't what I wanted. I wanted to go travel Europe. There's things I wanted to do. So he asked me to come over his house. I go to his house and I remember walking in and he has these plastic covered couches You know how
Oh
they
gosh.
used to do the floral with
Yeah.
plastic on top? And I'm thinking, this guy's gonna make my shoes. I mean, very nice gentleman. His family was super sweet, just a nice, nice man. And he goes, let's go to my garage. So we go to his garage, and he has all of the shoemaking machines and last under wraps. He then proceeds to tell me he used to work for this company called Bates Industries, where they would make all of the leathers and the boots for all the stuntmen in the 60s and 70s. The Penhalls, like everybody.
Wow.
He was their shoemaker and leather maker there. But he was retired. He now worked at a steel mill. And he says, and I'm getting excited because I see this shop and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have access to this and I want another pair of shoes. I wasn't even thinking selling, Miles. I was just thinking, I want more shoes. I had a black and white. Now I want a brown, this whole thing. And he's like, look, let me make you a pair and let's see what happens. I said, why are you doing this? He said, I don't know. I don't know why I'm making this, but let's see what happens.
Wow.
Miles, I kid you not. In 2 years, we did 2,500 pairs of shoes out of that garage. If you could name the musicians in the 90s, they were made in that garage. So the hot pink bubblegum boots for Gwen Stefani, we made them in that garage. The video where Pamela Anderson eats the band lit and then spits out the shoe, they were made in the garage. And just like anything else, these guys were just handing out my cards. And this is when they were getting like crazy record deals. The band 311, I remember I went to go fit them, and I think they bought like 25 pairs of shoes. The Reverend Horton Heat, I was now designing his suits and his shoes. It was crazy. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. My wife almost left me, Miles. So then over the course of this, we move in. We're still not married, but we have a kid. We're going to have another kid. We're together. And I would come home after concerts with these famous musicians to our little apartment. And where people go and do drugs and get high and drink, they would come over to the apartment to talk about shoes. Like
Oh,
literally, it was the craziest thing. So I'd show up at midnight, 1 o'clock with these musicians or people I met at the concert to buy shoes. And I'm excited. I'm thinking, this is cool. And my wife's like, what are you doing? We're asleep. It's midnight. Like literally, she almost left me.
oh,
And we had a distribution center, which was our 1-car garage in the back of the apartment.
oh,
So I
wow.
had everything. I mean, it was just, I was enamored. I was in love. I thought it was cool. I mean, who doesn't want to be on stage, right? And my thing was, if I can't be on stage, my shoes are on stage. And
Nice.
it was just one of those things where I fell in love with the whole process. That was the beginning, and then from there it just kept going, learning more about it. He was actually my first mentor. His garage was a disaster. At first it was kind of nice and neat. And then when I'm delivering 30 pairs at a time every week, 20 pairs at a time, and it turned into a mess. And I said, Mr. Canales, can I help you? And he goes, yeah, why don't you clean the garage? It went from cleaning the garage, and he showed me all the other steps of making shoes. And one of the reasons why I learned how to make shoes, for that year and a half of looking for shoemakers when I was driving the truck, everybody would tell me, oh, we can't do that. And I'm thinking to myself, it can't be that hard. Because I'd worked construction. I'm like,
Hmm.
not that hard. I mean, maybe it's not a great pair, but it can't be that hard. And I had picked up some old books of shoemaking, and this is pre-internet. So that I was always just searching, and he's the one who showed me about shoemaking. Now, the quality of leather and the shoes were like bricks, man. These things were hard as a rock. Um, just the leather that he would buy would be like from jobbers, like
Yeah.
scrap leather. And it wasn't even, it was stiff and hard, but he'd say, hey, George, from this pink hide, you can make 3 full pairs or 6 half pairs. So I would just put hash marks on the back and I cross out the hash mark. I haven't changed my process to this day, Miles. We literally, when somebody wants a pair of made to order shoes, we actually send fit samples. We have less than a 1% return rate on our made to order shoes because of that reason, right? You try it on and you eliminate any misconceptions of what it's going to fit like. So, for example, if you're a size 11, I would send you an 11 and a half. I would send you 11, 11 and a half, and 12, something like that. And I would send you swatches. It's no different than what I did, but it always worked because people tried on. Same thing for women. I send multiple fit samples. We sell them all. We send them all over the world, and people really, some people think they've never had a shoe made. They think, oh, it should fit like a Nike, right? But it's leather soled. It's
Right.
different. And if they've never had a pair of shoes made or don't know how our shoes fit, by having the fit samples, it totally just solves all the problems. So yeah. So that's kind
Brilliant.
of where we do a lot of our sales, like the fit samples. Once they get a little beat up, we'll do a sample sale. We do the sample sale and we get rid of the fit samples that are brand new. They haven't been worn, they've just been tried on. So we still do that to this day. It's worked out really, really good.
Well, there's the personalized attention that comes in that, and that unique
Yeah.
guest experience when they get a package delivered directly from you with
Yeah.
the finished pair to try on. It's all about
Yeah.
that ambiance, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
George,
I think it's honest luxury and it's true luxury.
oh,
And
that's
not to say the other things aren't luxury, but this is and also we're still at the size, Miles, where I still see my clients, and I I think that craziness, always lying, my father, always lying, always hustling, BSing, not being honest, really affected me in a way that I would rather tell you the truth and say, look, man, this is going to take 6 months to a year. Not because I've met with people that they'll just take the money. I don't want the money if I'm going to have a headache with you. My father would scam people out of money just for the sake of the money and then not think about the repercussions of what's going to happen. You still have to deal with it in 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is. I rather just be super honest about projects. So, and I want to be honest when I deal with people. I'm like, look, this is,
there's a truth in what you manufacture, and the love and the passion that comes out in the
oh, thank
product,
you.
and this honesty that you're speaking about is all united. So
Yeah.
I
Thank
get it.
you.
I'm following you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about running a business, the essentials of capitalization. Most people who've never built a brand think it's about, oh, supply and demand, but there's an unglamorous truth about what it takes to capitalize a footwear business from zero. Talk us through that journey.
Oh my gosh. Miles, I started this out of ignorance. Ignorance and love. I loved it, but I was so ignorant to what business is. I didn't even know how to read a balance sheet. I didn't go to school for this. And, typically you end up doing what your parents, like if you have professional parents, you may be a professional. If you have doctor parents, just I had a father who was a criminal and he didn't teach us how to do things properly, right? There's an order to the world. You can't shortcut life. And not that I was trying to shortcut life, but I didn't understand P&Ls. I didn't understand numbers. I didn't understand any of that. And it took a long time. I would say the first 5, 6 years were just learning how to do things. I mean, I look at my old emails, I couldn't even craft a proper email. And it was someone who explained to me. I remember I was consulting for somebody and sending emails to China where I had to learn how to be very specific when I send emails and bullet points and, because
Yeah.
there's this language barrier. It's not like this where we're just talking. It's a very different way. All of these little things that I had to learn along the way. And then for my business, we have two aspects. You have the front of house and you have back of house because we actually make our product. We make our sneakers are made in Mexico, but all of our footwear and bags are all made here. So then managing people, it's just, man, it's been an adventure to say the least. And it's been tough. And you know this, Miles. It's not easy. And I don't think any business is easy. I'm not saying other businesses are easier. It's just the business that we're in. This is hard. And the grading, the sizing. I'll give you a story. So I remember we made this beautiful boot for Barney's, and I want to say the wholesale, just the wholesale, Miles. I think the wholesale on these boots were probably $600. This boot was just beautiful. So you're looking at what, $1,800 boot,
Yep.
something like that. So we had bought these zippers from our supplier. We start getting calls that the zippers were coming undone in the middle when people would wear them. Now, this isn't even my fault, right? We thought they were good zippers. We've been using these zippers. So we have to take that entire order back. Miles, they bought those boots for Madison Avenue, Beverly Hills, and I believe the website. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So, and when you repair them, they don't look the same anymore, right?
Right.
Because it's a different thing. I'm arguing with the manufacturer. Well, we'll give you credit for the zippers. I'm like, you're not understanding. You guys ruined this whole So I still have a couple of those boots left. I've used, and this was a long time ago, Miles. But it's one of those things where that's part of manufacturing. There's so many little steps in manufacturing. Some things you have no control of. Whether sometimes it's the leather, right? As you understand, in production overseas, you have the tolerance. It's got to be within 10%. When I buy hides, because I buy such small quantities, I can't send it back if it's 1.5 millimeters thick. I got to stay with it because I'm buying such small amounts. I have to continue to work with the people that I work with, and you have to adjust it. And sometimes the hides, when we color the hides, when we add the patina, if it's a different lot, it's not going to be the same as the previous lot. We
Sure.
might have to add 45 minutes or an hour to the coloring of it. That every time we get a new lot, we got to test it. So there's just the small batch production that has its own issues, you know. So it's I love it. I love production, to be honest with you, Miles. I've realized in the last couple of years, I'm really good at production. I'm really good at solving problems. I'm really good there. I get a kick out of fixing something, like fixing that problem. And maybe it stems from, fixing the problem in the family or something, but I really like fixing problems. It's fun. I'm not the type that wants to do the same thing every day. So the production and figuring that out is it's kind of fun for me.
George, the business has shifted a lot. So you do a lot of consumer direct, but you'd mentioned
Yeah,
Barney's, and at one point in
yeah,
time, you had a really sizable, significant wholesale business. I remember Douglas Fir, I remember
yeah,
Confederacy, American Rag, Fred Siegel, and Stanley. Obviously, then Barney's went out. I remember you opening Colette and going into that
yeah.
location. And I traveled Europe. I was in the UK a lot. I saw your product throughout the colony there. How has the business shifted, and what does that do to what you're able to capitalize and create for the community?
Miles, we got kicked in the gut. I mean, like a
Yes,
lot of businesses, right?
yeah,
I mean, we got kicked. I mean, I think, and this is a lot of businesses. It's not just mine, but I think friends that I'm talking to are still trying to figure it out since pandemic. And I've had stores, it's completely shifted. So Colette closed their store in, I think, 2017, 2018. Barney's filed for bankruptcy at the end of 2019, and they were our largest retail partner.
yep.
We've worked with Neiman's before, we've worked with Bergdorf, but the shift that happened, I would say in 22, 23, was stores either said, I can't do luxury anymore, so they lowered their price points and they started bringing in brands that kind of looked like what we were doing, but maybe made in Spain or Portugal and not have made in the States, which they got to do what they got to do to survive. But something that really affected us was I would say in 22, the marquee brands, the big European brands, they started approaching the stores, and so they wouldn't lose shelf space. Basically, they said, "Pay us when you can. We'll figure it out." Right. So for me, we typically ask for a deposit up front because the moment, Miles, if you place an order and you're a store, the moment your leather arrives, I'm already paying my guys. And what a lot of stores didn't understand with us is I don't get credit for my manufacturing. I'm making your product in house. My guys are getting paid
Yeah.
every week, whether they cut 3 pairs or 4 pairs. And I said, I get a little bit of credit from the leather manufacturer, from my supplier, but I don't get credit for my guys. And they wanted now to go after the pandemic, they wanted to go from net 30, which ends up getting paid in 60 days. They wanted to go to net 90, and they didn't want to give deposits because, oh, times are tough. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but times are tough for everybody. Let's figure something out. So we slowly started pulling away from stores. It just wasn't worth it for us. I can't float somebody for 5, 6 months. It's just not possible, right? Especially the scale. We're not a big brand. We maybe max out at the height of it. We were maxing out at 5,000 pairs a year, that just the pairs, but then we were also doing some bags. So it's not really, really massive. And it's never meant to be. I never intended this to have 150 employees and making 30,000 pairs. It's just not what it was meant to be. The goal was to use our diffusion line Esquivel X and manufacture that in Mexico or somewhere else to build a business, right? Let someone else handle the manufacturing of that. So it's just been it's been challenging trying to figure that out. We still work with an amazing store. We still have stores that pick us up every now and then, but Martin Patrick 3 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I think they just got voted like the best men's store, and New York Times is one of the top stores. It's a beautiful store. The whole team's amazing. We've been with them for about 3 or 4 years. We do really well in their store. But for the most part, it's direct to consumer trunk shows. We're now shifting, what started happening about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, our clients who are CEOs or doctors that own their medical practices, they started having us come in and fit their employees or their staff or their board members. And it turned into like this whole corporate thing. So we've worked with Chase. We've worked with the Grand Bohemian in Orlando, Florida, the staff at the hotel. There's a couple other hospitals that we've worked with. So that's kind of, it's a fun thing meeting these people, and there's no markdowns. There's no chargebacks, and you might fit 50 people or you might fit 150 people. And it just depends. We've done a couple events with Chase, and that's been a lot of fun.
That's great. Water seems to find its own level and its own flow. As one thing closes, another opportunity opens. I was right there with you. I watched the market shift. Then I watched it go from welted footwear to just sneakers and the super casual look. Then I watched vintage come back where people were shopping for pre-used and worn. Luxury to me has always been very important because as you put the love and the crafting that goes into it, I'd rather own less and have something of heirloom quality that I can refurbish and pass along than disposable. But it's remarkable times. George, when you think to the collaborations, and I look at Fratelli, Tumi, Public School, Tutima, Net-a-Porter, Colette, Barney's, the whole elk, Nick with the hats. Is there one that personally moved you, not commercially, not the bank account, but just from a craft and artistry perspective that inspired and moved you the most?
I'm doing one right now, and it's been a lot of fun. But I'll tell you the one that had been a lifelong dream is we did a watch collaboration with Tutima watches. I think it was 3 years ago. And I'll give you the backstory of how I fell in love with watches. So my dad used to hustle jewelry. He'd go to downtown LA, buy jewelry, and sell it. On one of those trips, and I'm in junior high, so I'm probably 13 years old.
Right.
And on one of those trips, the stand, it's no different than in New York. You go to the jewelry mart and everybody's got their stuff out. So I'm looking at the guy next door to where the next booth where my dad's buying jewelry, and he's got watches. And for some reason, this gentleman says, "You like watches?" I said, "I don't know. I'm 13 years old." And he pulls out this Seiko diver's watch, and he saw, "This is an automatic." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he says, "It winds on movement." Miles, I was obsessed.
Wow.
Like obsessed. Like how does it doesn't even comprehend, right?
Right.
Here I am, this kid, I'm wearing hand-me-down clothes. Like I was just obsessed with this automatic Seiko diver's watch. So we're living in a motel, and now I'm in junior high, and this is the year that G-Shock Frogman came out. And we used to get bused up in the hills to the really expensive area. Everybody's got their G-Shock Frogman. I'm dreaming of this watch. I worked at this house across the street. I'm 13 years old. And I used to walk their dog, mow their lawn, wash the car, the whole thing. Great family. Craig and Kathy Jordan, if they hear this, it'd be amazing to get a hold of them. I haven't seen them since junior high. They were amazing people. So I was getting paid $1.25 an hour, Miles. $1.25 an hour in 1983. So I saved up $125 to buy that Seiko diver's watch. So I had that watch. So now I roll into junior high, and I always wanted to surf, but how am I going to buy a $300 surfboard living in a motel? It's just, I always wanted to do these things that I didn't take up surfing till later in life, right? When I can actually afford my surfboard. So I'm wearing this watch, and my dad decides to borrow it, and he takes it from me at times and pawns it for drugs.
Ugh.
And I would get it back every now and then. But finally, it never came back, right? The Seiko diver's watch. For my 19th birthday, my girlfriend buys me the same type of watch, the Seiko Diver's watch. I still have that watch. And I've been obsessed, and I've always bought beautiful watches, things that I love over the years. So Tumi was one. I bought an Omega with a GMT, like just different things that I've bought over time. And I ended up running into the watch editor for the Rob Report, and we started talking about watches. They actually did a feature on my vintage watch, and the watches that I owned at the time. I'm always selling them, and she said, you really ought to meet Tutima. And I'm like, well, I have a Tutima. She's like, no way you have a Tutima. It's a German brand. It's not super expensive, but it's not one of those watches that is just top of mind for everybody. They were the first pilot watches out of Germany before World War II. I think the first watch was in 1922 or something like that. And they were pilot's watches. And I happened to buy it. I bought it in 2007. So I'm talking to the editor. She's like, I'm going to make an introduction to their PR. I met their PR. She's like, I can't believe you have that Tutima. Very few people own Tutimas here in the United States. It's a German brand, European brand. And she says, would you ever be interested in a collaboration with them? I'm like, yeah, of course. I say yes to everything, Miles. So I say yes to everything. I ended up meeting with, he's the president of Tutima US, and we talked. And he says, if we did a collaboration, what would you do? I said, I think, and we're coming out of COVID, I said, it should be travel again. And the guy that would wear this watch is the guy who does things on his own. It's not about the yacht. It's about a sailboat. Just kind of the whole, it's the guy who drives the vintage Porsche, and he works on it himself. And so he travels with I designed a duffel bag, a pair of boots, and 2 watch straps to go with the watch. I actually got to design the watch as well, which is kind of crazy. So the whole kit, I want to say the kit was $17,000. So Hodinkee did a feature on it.
Yeah.
Esquire did a feature. Rob Report. Who else did? I mean, it was freaking cool, man. A dream come true. Now, here's the lesson in that, Miles. I thought about this, and my dad took my watch, my first watch, and I was heartbroken. But then he gives me back a $10,000 watch for free.
Wow.
What
a healthy way to look at it. Yeah.
It took some time, right? But it all comes back, man. It all comes back. Yeah, that was just crazy. And I think it was God along the way has just reaffirmed like these things. Like I lost my $125 watch, but I got a $10,000 watch, which is kind of crazy. And I got to design it, right? It literally says on the back of it, I ended up selling most of my watches. One of my friends says, why are you selling it? I said, I think the ultimate flex is designing your own watch. And he's like, you're right, dude.
Dude,
I have a couple other ones. Yeah. So it was super cool. Fun project. Really, really fun project. I mean, they've all been fun. I did a collaboration with Shoe Palace and New Balance. I've never done sneakers because I was waiting for an official collaboration. And we did it. It was Hispanic Heritage Month, I think 3 years ago. That was really cool. Super fun. But they've all been great. I just did a collaboration with Paris Saint-Germain. This was my 3rd collaboration with them. They were in town. We did some slides for them. It's just, I love collaborating, Miles, because I love learning from other people. I'm not the guy who thinks my stuff is the best. I think this is what I do. If we come together, maybe it'll be really cool. And some of them have been amazing. Some of them have been good. And some of them have been okay. But for the most part, like, I think also when we collaborated with Brock, they won the Fashion Fund, and I made these beautiful alligator boots that walked in at New York Fashion Week, which was insane. For Anna, and then Anna Winter says she loves them. I mean, it's just things like that are just crazy. Yeah, so they've all been a blast. The one we're doing right now with Stan Clothing is really cool. It's doing really, really well. We're taking his antique textiles and turning them into totes and slides.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
George, this has been awesome. We're coming to the top of the hour now, and if someone listening would like to commission a pair of shoes for themselves or a family member, or perhaps consult or collaborate with you and the House of Esquivel, how would one go about doing that?
I mean, you can either email info@georgeesquivel.com, or they can just send me a DM on Instagram @George Esquivel. super easy when everybody knows I mean, we get a lot of people that, just want to talk sometimes. I can't always answer those, but for the most part, we get back to everybody. Yes, reach out. I'd love to talk.
George, last question for us today. One piece of advice you have for the aspiring artist looking to get into business.
Looking to get into business. I mean, have faith and work hard. Like, have faith in God and work hard, man. That's what else is there? I mean, you got to, what is it? The 10,000 hours, right? It's just every artist, it's not meant to be easy. And I don't think there's any shortcuts. It's just keep grinding and don't accept no. You got to keep fighting. I mean, I'm 56 miles and I wish I was 46 where I'm at in life, but I think a lot of us feel that because of what happened with COVID and circumstances, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I'm in a good place as well.
Fantastic. George, let me leave you with a meditation for the evening, something to think about and something to carry with you. Grace for you, for me as we move forward. The art that you make is beautiful. It creates a better world to live in, something to celebrate, cherish, and hand down and forward. Brother, keep on being you. Thank you for your time. Friends, family, and cohorts. This is the Fight or Flight podcast with George Esquivel coming to us live from Los Angeles. It's been a pleasure, brother.
No flight. We got to keep fighting.
Oh.